Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Michelle James and I am the Senior Director of Alumni Engagement at the Rollins School of Public Health. Today, we're excited to continue season 2 of our webinar series, Our Public Health Future Starts Now. Created by our Rollins Alumni Board, this series offers an opportunity to engage in the ever-changing landscape of public health and explore the influence of technology and innovation in our work. Our hope is that these sessions inspire new ways to think about public health and perhaps inspire new career paths for our alumni, students, and fellow public health professionals. In today's session, we're talking about entrepreneurialism in public health. That is how you can practically turn your innovative ideas into successful public health-focused businesses. At this time, I'd like to turn over our program to Niles Friedman, Rollins alumnus and president of our Rollins Alumni Board, and the driver for this series. Niles is a founding executive advisor with Star Insights, where he specializes in creating and growing businesses, divisions, and core functions within organizations. In this role, he works to build strategic collaborations across sectors, industries, and geographies through his work with startups, C-suite executives, public sector administrators, and nonprofit leaders. Niles, it's all yours.
All right. Well, thank you, Michelle, and welcome everyone. Really excited to dive into this topic today about entrepreneurialism, innovation, starting a business. How does that look and feel, and how are public health students and students across Emory really thinking about the future of public health as it relates to new businesses? As Michelle mentioned, this series is really focused on the connection between tech and innovation and public health. And last year, we had an amazing kickstart to the series with sessions that really focused on AI and a lot of really technical areas. But again, what does that mean for public health professionals? What does that mean for Rollins alum? And what does that mean for Rollins students? And I think we're really excited about how this is progressing. Our second session kicked off a little earlier this year. We had a great session on AI and what that means for public health. And then today we have an amazing panel of Rollins students, as well as other students across our Emory community that have chosen to focus in public health as it relates to a new business. So we really want to focus in on their stories, their successes, what they've learned, and hopefully really share some wisdom for those that are here today joining us. We're also here with the interim executive director, Ben Garrett, for the Hatchery. We'll talk a little bit about what the Hatchery is in more detail, but it's an amazing resource for Emory students across all schools to think about how to generate ideas, how to think about new businesses, how to connect with funders and partners. And it's just an amazing resource that students can tap into. And I know Ben has been doing a lot of work to also think about its evolution and scale so that it can have further reach across the Emory community. And then we'll dive into each of our panelists and their specific stories as it relates to the Hatchery, but also why they chose to focus on public health and what was their interest, what was their sort of light bulb moment, what have been some of those lessons learned, and what do they think about the future of public health as it relates to being an entrepreneur and really generating an innovative culture across public health more broadly. So Ben, I'd love to kick it off with you. You've been with the Hatchery for quite some time and are the core leader that is really helping to drive its growth and its progress. And you've connected with each of these panelists, you're given their tenure within the Hatchery. But maybe you could give a little bit about your background and sort of the role that Hatchery plays across the Emory innovation community. And then I know you also have an exciting announcement about the future of Hatchery.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Niles. I'm really happy to be here. And I'll keep my remarks fairly brief because Noah, Alyssa, Doug, they're the real show here. And so it's a huge honor to get to work with them and students like them. And that really is our focus. So we work with Emory students from all the schools that make up Emory to help to equip them with the skill sets and mindsets that they need to be successful and impactful entrepreneurs and innovators. We do that through our space. So I'm at the Hatchery today. I'm not literally right here, but we have a very cool co-working space, event space, and classroom space where Emory community members can come and host and attend workshops and speaking events and panels and conferences that further innovation around campus, also work on their ventures and projects. We have a skills builder program, which is focused on students who want to just learn about key skills around entrepreneurship, things like human-centered design, building teams, gaining resiliency. And then we have a suite of programs for students who are working on ventures. So our incubator during the school year and our accelerator during the summer are working very much shoulder to shoulder with student innovators on a whole host of different kinds of ventures. And so you'll get to meet some of those folks today. You alluded to a big announcement. So yeah, we're really excited for a new offering that is rolling out now. We are partnering with the Goizueta Business School's Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation, as well as Techstars, to offer the Emory Techstars Founder Catalyst program. So you can think about that as kind of a pre-accelerator that is open to all members of the Emory community. So that's students, faculty, staff, alumni, and if you're a business and you just have one of those people on your core team, it is also an accessible program for you. So that is going to be kicking off in the spring, but applications are actually open right now. So if you are interested in learning more about that or applying, I think we'll be sharing some of that info a little bit later on. And then I'm always happy to talk with folks about their venture and learn ways that we can be supportive. So again, Mal, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to be here. And yeah, I'll let the real entrepreneurs, innovators do their thing.
Perfect. Yeah, and it's been really fun collaborating with you, Ben, on this series and just connecting on how we elevate this type of work. I mean, I think this announcement is really exciting because with this series, our audience is primarily Rollins alum and students. So the fact that alum that are attending today or that can listen to the recording can hear what the students have said about their experience and then think about how that applies to them with this new announcement and this new sort of growth trajectory for the hatchery, I just think is really compelling. So thanks for sort of elevating that. What I'd love to do, is now pass it over to our true entrepreneurs. And we have a few questions. What I'd love to do is have folks really just do a brief background into your experience, education connected to Rollins or public health. But the one question, I know this is an exciting one for you all, what was that light bulb moment? Like, when did you sort of sit back and say, hey, I've got this education, I've got this work experience, starting to connect some dots, and I think there's something here that I want to pursue. So we'd love to hear a little bit of your background, and then what was that initial light bulb moment that really was the catalyst for you opening and starting your business? And Doug, do you want to kick us off?
Sure, I can go first.
Yeah.
All right, so my name's Doug Brooks. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. I went to Howard University for undergrad, studied finance, and then I started at Emory in the business school. Goes at a business school last year. We're focused on entrepreneurship and healthcare, and now this is my first semester at Rollins School of Public Health as a global health student. But the background for my business is my dad was a special education teacher and swim coach back in Detroit. And I mean, he was a phenomenal coach, won over 20 championships. I was all state and, our high school, we didn't have a weight room. So like my dad would get very innovative. He would like create these drag suits. I would help him and attach things to them so our swim team can get stronger. He would also put them on, a lot of kids that were in his classes that had like physical impairments and have them like crawling around the pool or like pulling a rope. So just like innovative ways and fun ways to get people stronger. Fast forward years had passed, and then, went from talking about this as an idea with my dad when I was 13 to like after graduating from college, I said, Dad, like, let's get back on that horse. Like, let's like start working on our business. And, we hired a patent attorney, we got a patent, and, we started like testing it on swimmers. But then the real light bulb moment was when, me and my dad are a part of the same fraternity, Omega Psi Phi. I went and visited one of our frat brothers who was like 85. He had just had a fall. And, I just visited him in the hospital over a course of 8 months. But his mobility, his cognitive abilities just declined over the 8 months. And then that's when I was like, wow, we really need to help, older people, people that have a high fall risk, people that are at risk of heart disease. So that's when I applied to, the Rollins School of Public Health. And I just wanted to focus on research, the research aspect of it, and not just athletics. So that's why I'm happy to be here. I went to this like World Diabetes event last year. It's actually coming up around like November 14th, if I'm not mistaken. So, that's my experience and how I came to Rollins, and even the hatchery. That's why I have the hoodie on right now. I've been working on this business for so long, but I've made so many strides over the last year, and it's been because of, Ben and Stuart Zola and Christy Brown and people at the hatchery. So hopefully I haven't taken too much time.
No, that's great, Doug. And as an ex-swimmer, I love this story because I just think it's so poetic and it's so fundamental, right? Like what you're talking about is you're watching swimmers and thinking about ways to help improve them. And it's a very foundational idea, but think about the implications and how powerful that is. And then it was this catalyst for you to go to Rollins to think about research about it. So I just love it's an amazing story. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Alyssa, would you like to go next? Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and your light bulb moment.
Oh, thank you, Niles. I'm very jealous of Doug's sweatshirt, so I'm gonna have to get in on that. What a delight to be here. A little bit about me: I relocated to Atlanta, Georgia, with my beautiful wife about 2 years ago now. I was called and came about a public health dimension via theological education at Emory, and I became fascinated with understanding the relevance of compassion care and how it could answer a lot of the mental health trends that we're seeing in public health. It started with a passion to look at this intersection between addiction, depression, anxiety, and really examining where spiritual direction, compassion care, mindfulness would alleviate a lot of these issues and participate in behavioral health remedies as well. And what ultimately discovered is that, and my gratitude for Emory grows day by day, because really it's one of the only places where you can come up with a hypothesis that sounds a little bit, kind of like a unicorn, which was, will compassion care, chaplaincy, pastoral care, spiritual direction really address human suffering, and where can we test that and prove that? And thanks to encouragement from the hatchery mentors there, as well as my mentors at the medical school and public health school, TAPFER was incubated and launched, and really continued to flesh this hypothesis out, measuring where cancer patients specifically benefit from pastoral care and religious services. We now call it spiritual health, which is this whole beautiful blooming area of public health that really represents the intersection of religion and public health. So that's where TAP first started. And that's a little bit about me.
I love it. Yeah. And I love this theme that we've got here of folks being part of different schools across the Emory community, right? And connecting those dots to public health. And the layers that you're talking about with mental health, and that is there's such a strong thread to public health, but thinking about it through the lens of religion. So it's an amazing light bulb moment because you're connecting all these dots and saying, there's something here, like, what can we do about it? And then going to the hatchery and starting to test this out and starting to get to make it more fully baked, right? So that you can start to put something in front of people and then really start to share those ideas more broadly. Very good. Noah, would love to hear about your story and your light bulb moment.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Noah Mancuso. My pronouns are he, him. I am originally from West Virginia, but did my undergrad in North Carolina, which is where I first started to do some research in the HIV field. Post-bachelor's, I worked for several years in HIV, and domestically, a lot of our research and outreach is done among the LGBTQ population. And working in the field for a couple years, there was a lot of great intention in the outreach and recruitment for the LGBTQ population. But a lot of the folks that I saw leading these projects, who were PIs, getting the grants, leading the studies, weren't actually from the community themselves. And that led to a lot of disconnect between, how we were asking questions in our surveys, how we were disseminating those results, and ways we were talking about certain stigmatized populations. And it wasn't until I came to Rollins, so I did my master's at Rollins a couple years ago, that I really started to think more deeply about this and connect with other queer students on campus. And I think my big like aha moment was there was a group of us with the LGBTQ organization helping with the Mpox vaccination here in Atlanta. And just talking with the individuals, they were so appreciative to see people that saw them and could relate to them and weren't clinicalizing them. They didn't think of them as a research participant, just as like another person in their community. And that was so helpful for them to like convince them to get vaccinated and feel comfortable during that process. And with the help of the hatchery, I kind of had this idea, wasn't sure where to go about LGBTQ health consulting. So I worked with Ben and several others with a micro grant and eventually an accelerator program to start the Queer Health Collaborative. And our goal really is to make sure that we have LGBTQ researchers who can use our lived experiences to improve the quality of healthcare research and healthcare provision, and kind of bridge that gap between the community who wants help and the community who can help that is also from that community.
Very good. Thank you, Noah. And I know you also are a doctoral student, correct? Do you have any, how does that connect in with all this work that you're doing? Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that's the next part of like not only identifying this gap, but then wanting to be one of those like researchers or PIs leading this project who can identify with the LGBT community myself. So yeah, after my master's, I stayed on at Emory and Mulaney Graduate School, now doing a PhD in Epi, and hope to be, leading these studies and getting those NIH grants myself and making sure community is at the center of all of those programs.
Very good. Well, this is great. I mean, this lays an amazing foundation for additional discussion. One of the things as we were chatting in preparation for the webinar today was, you guys have these amazing stories, these light bulb moments, like the education and the background and the expertise. But I think one of the things, having worked for a startup and having done some work with entrepreneurs through different roles I've played, there's also a lot of mess. There's some setbacks, there's some challenges, right? And I think that can be really helpful for students and also for alumni, because there's always, you're going to end up in a good place, but sometimes to get there, there's some roadblocks and there's challenges along the way. So would love to just kind of open it up to whoever would like to jump in and maybe talk a little bit about some of the challenges or obstacles, but like how that was a real catalyst for you to then move forward. Like how did that challenge really support you in thinking about how to progress with your idea and the business that you've launched? All right, Doug, you want to go?
Yeah,
Go
I thought
for
it
it.
was like a nose go situation.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'll start. Yeah, it's, one of the problems that I ran into was just knowing like when to really pull the trigger on my business. So like I had got my patent at the end of 2019, and I had been paying so much money for it, and then that's when like everything shut down. But then 2021, of course, everything opened back up. The pools started to open back up. So, but then I was still working my full-time job, and then in 2022, I decided to just go for it, and I think that it was a great experience, but then I just spent all of my money. I spent all of my savings. I spent all of my 401k. This is before I met the hatchery. This is before I met Ben. So that was that was a big problem. Just like running out of resources to like support my creativity. Cause I'm like, hey, like my product is, I always say it's at the iPhone 1 right now. I want to bring it to the iPhone 15, but I just didn't personally have the resources to do that. So then that's when I applied to go as at a business school. I'm just like, they're all about entrepreneurship. So I think just like I said, running out of resources for your creativity and knowing that, oh, you have to pivot, like knowing when to pivot and saying, hey, I just can't keep doing this. So that's when I said, hey, I need to educate myself on how to fundraise. And then now going to the hatchery, they really teach you how to, run experiments on your project or to test different hypotheses that you have at a low cost, like before you go spend your whole savings on a business, like go there because like they just have the knowledge and connections to really, help you make decisions and be fiscally responsible. So I'll leave it there.
And Doug, if you might be asking, I think one of the things you're mentioning too, right? There's a level of persevering, right? So resources dried up, but you still had that idea, you still had that passion, you still had that interest.
Right.
How were you able to keep that momentum going, maintain that focus around this idea?
Yeah. When all of my resources ran out for the project, I would still have people that were in my original studies with the City of Detroit Parks and Rec Department texting me saying, "Hey, like look at me, I'm at the pool, I'm in Swift gear," or just seeing my alma mater, Howard University, coach saying, "Hey man, thanks for sending us some jerseys. Like this is helping our team." So it's just like, oh my God, I can't do everything I want to do, but you still have people cheering you on. So it's a beautiful thing.
It's awesome. Very good. Love it. Noah or Alyssa? Yeah, Alyssa, jump right in.
I was gonna say maybe we'll just follow the
Yeah.
previous precedent, but you know, I submit this so humbly because I think entrepreneurship for me is a bit like my hair. It's untamable. It's going to do something different every day. I better not even attempt to think I know anything. It's a very humbling experience, which shouldn't be a deterrent. And I think a requirement for being an entrepreneur is possessing um, some curiosity in that. So humility should not be conflated with just substituting, getting humbled with curiosity. So I invite people to really supplant any kind of fear-driven tactics they may have if they don't want to pursue being an entrepreneur. I know for me, resilience was really cultivated through customer discovery, which is underscored heavily. So if those are on this webinar thinking of dipping their toe into the pond of entrepreneurship, this is something that is emphasized at the hatchery. All the mentors place a lot of emphasis on this theme, and it is so critical. And it's a great way for you to quickly learn and adapt to whatever pivot you need to make. And so, I think in this question, it's very important that you know pivots are normal. It's the cycle of business. If you're not changing and growing, if you're called to be an entrepreneur, you're not a stagnant person. You're not a ceiling person. You tend to look at problems and want to create ways that help alleviate that problem and quickly. And so I think that it's really important that in perseverance, that's can sometimes be an evocative word where you think, gosh, I just have to suffer through this. I remember standing on the belt line asking people, was the word chaplain a triggering word for them when I had to come up with what word resonated for my app. I connect patients with, in fact, chaplains, but that was a triggering word. It was illuminating. And so I would just say have a dogged need to solve your problem, but have a curiosity that will help you adapt when you learn that your customers or who you thought should love your product may not.
Well, I love this premise, excuse me, that you're talking about with customer discovery, right? So it gets into you have an idea. Well, before it's fully baked, go out and test it, right? If you've got something maybe 20% completed, go out and test it, right? And you, like you said, it doesn't have to be, it could be a formal session where you gather people together, or it could be I'm on a platform of the train and just asking people questions, just kind of see what the reaction and sort of their engagement is. So I just love that premise. And it's such a foundational element for, I think, folks with a public health background or interested in public health, because it's so foundational to how we think about our work, right? It's about the individuals. It's about the individuals that are being served. It's about residents or the public or people that need services. And so I think that's a really important point on just this whole idea of customer discovery. Love it. Noah, how about for you? How about a little bit of your journey and any sort of challenges or setbacks that have been really helpful for you?
Yeah, I know many things to share. I've talked with Alyssa about a few of these too, but I think one thing or a couple things that come to mind. The first is I think in public health, we're so passionate about what we do. And as entrepreneurs and like innovators, we're also so passionate about our ideas that we sometimes get like super lost and entangled in those. And like, if we don't have success with our startup, that means we're not a success. I think very early on, I was so invested in like, I am this company is me, and
Mm.
reflecting the like successes, but also the failures of that company and my own personal value and worth. So having other entrepreneurs and innovators through the hatchery and at Emory to talk to was super helpful and like stepping away and realizing that, yes, I am a human and have assets outside of my company, and like there are ups and downs, which is totally normal in the startup space. And I think that was really playing out as we first got our few contracts. So we've had a few contracts to do research projects, super excited to pull that trigger like Doug was talking about, and then just kind of took on too much too quickly and didn't have the personnel to help with it, didn't have the timelines set up in place because we didn't have the practice yet to like know how long things would take. And then having to go back to these clients and, apologize and ask for more time. And that is kind of like a self humbling, humiliating thing to do, but it's something where great to learn from your growing pains, was able to regroup with our like consultants that I have and kind of establish a more formal training process, figure out what timelines work for everyone else. Because, I'm a student, I work other jobs, contractors are also doing that. So kind of just balancing and understanding the startup space and what our limitations are as like individuals and teams.
That's huge, right? That idea, because if you have a really strong idea and you're connecting, it sounds like the Hatchery helped to facilitate that with people that would be interested and they express interest. You don't want to turn that away. You don't want to go, you want to say, absolutely, let's go, let's run. But I found this too, right? Sometimes if you run too fast or too broadly initially, right, then the value can get diffused a bit, right? So I think it's a really important point. I really appreciate you sharing that because it's not that you want to inhibit growth, but it's like, hey, let me connect with something at the core. Let me go deep, right? Let me deliver on that. And then through that, you're going to be able to scale probably in a much more, maybe easier fashion, right? So that's a really great point. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to agree totally. Yeah, scaling at the right pace is super important.
Yeah, yeah. Ben, do you have any thoughts? I mean, you've seen so many other students come through, obviously, the hatchery across Emory. Are there any thoughts on just common maybe setbacks or maybe piggybacking on what other folks have said already?
I mean, so I maybe two things. One thing I would say is one thing that we definitely see a lot of student entrepreneurs wrestle with is this idea of failing and failing like forward or failing in helpful ways. Like if you're an Emory student, you're a pretty high performing person. You are used to winning, succeeding, getting the good grade, all of that stuff. And a lot of times you're succeeding in environments where the success metric is very clear. And the way to hit that success metric is very clear. And entrepreneurship isn't like that at all. Because you are deciding what the success metric is. And if you're doing something genuinely innovative, no one is actually going to be able to tell you exactly how to do it. There might be people who have done things that are similar to you, and there is this community that can offer advice and perspective, but ultimately, like, you're the only one who's ever created your venture. And so there is no roadmap to be able to do that. And I think that I hope that that's both, like, it's a little scary, but also I hope it's a little bit liberating. It's like you're failing, but it's not because you're doing it wrong. There's not really a right way to do it yet. Like, you are finding the right way to do it. And I think one thing that, Doug, Alyssa, and Noah, like, that helps them to do that, and that we see with many of our entrepreneurs, is like the way in which entrepreneurship is kind of about love. It's not talked about that way often, but it's really clear from like all three of these student stories that like what is driving them to do what they do is love of their communities, of specific people in their lives, of experiences that they have had, and like wanting to share those with other people. And I think that that's something that makes Emory founders maybe not unique, but it is something I have noticed, that a lot of students are starting ventures out of like a love of a community, a group of people, or themselves. And I think that is an awesome reason to start a company or an organization. And that love is what gets you through some of these failures. It's basically like, I love the possibility of doing something good enough to tolerate the discomfort or pain of this failure. So yeah, these three are great examples of that for sure.
Love it. Yeah, go ahead, Alyssa.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think when you talk about love, and one of the values I believe at the Hatchery is human-centered design, and Tupper has a deep tech component to it. So when I hear human-centered design, I come from a background of UI UX and building websites and development and big data. But human-centered design is rooted in love and public health. That intersects so importantly to what you were mentioning, Niles, which is, even in the business school and running a business, working for a company, a customer-centric ethos, creating products. This drives your pricing strategy. This drives your product innovation. This drives your brand narrative. So I think it does start with love, and Emory is such a treasure. Whether you're an alum or currently here, it just has such an enriched opportunity to meet other like-minded mentors and people. But that human-centered design is so expansive at Emory because it has a very tech-driven definition, but for purposes of public health, we're really, we're beyond a metric. Biostatistics by Paul Weiss traumatized me, but I would say that, we're beyond the curve in many ways. We are still human. And just because this shows on a trend or a data metric, I'm dealing with people who have anxiety and depression from multiple sources and reasons. So I think that it's important to understand that who you are serving. One of the books Ben recommends is The Mom Test. And it's a great book, and it does really speak to this. So for folks listening, that might be something. If you're not already called to immediately book an appointment with Ben in the Hatchery, that's a book and resource you should check out.
I love it, Alyssa. No, it's a great point. And just one thing I wanted to mention on this, because I think there's a real good theme here, right? Love, the human connection. I mean, the alignment with public health, right? If you have an MPH, inherently when you're going through an MPH degree, that is top of mind, front and center in any sort of course you're taking, right? You're always thinking about the person that this is going to impact. With a health policy management background, even some of the courses I took had that connection back to who are you trying to serve? Who are you trying to connect with? And there's so much value in that. But I think I love the connection for folks on the panel today, but also folks that are here listening in on the webinar, that can be the catalyst for maybe getting some ideas together. Like, what are you not only passionate about, but based on your background, based on the communities you want to engage with or support or serve, like that ability to hone in on that is so valuable. And a lot of folks that think about new businesses, sometimes they think about it, but they don't have that direct connection that you're mentioning to the individual, to the human, to the person that they can ultimately serve and support. So I love that point. Noah or Doug, any other thoughts on setbacks or just any other? Okay, good. All right. Well, the next question is getting a little more tactical so we can make sure people really understand the resources that are available. So obviously each of you connected in with the Hatchery and worked with Ben. We'd love to hear about the resources that you felt were the most useful for you, just going through your journey individually. And then were there other resources that were available or that you tapped into that other folks might have interest to maybe connect with? So Hatchery specific, and then maybe outside of the Hatchery. Noah, do you want to kick us off? Yeah.
Yeah. I think like the very first thing is the Hatchery was super impactful in like making this happen, like for real. It was just an idea in my head, and I, on a whim, like filled out an application for one of the micro grants, and having somebody and a group of people like believe in that idea and help me kind of articulate what exactly I wanted to do with it. And like back that support up with some financial incentive was like a really, really big kickstart for the company itself. And the Hatchery's been super influential since then, from like figuring out, I come from a very, I would say, like research, numbers, public health background, not so much the business side of things. So getting help on like how to register it as an LLC, how to do tax documents, setting up like formal contracts with our clients. And I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know how to do like the formal language that's needed. The Hatchery was great at making connections with not even people at the Hatchery themselves, but also like externally with alumni and people from the law school and the business school. And those were like invaluable for like the day-to-day administration of the business and making sure it was like successful from the start.
Love it. Well, it's like there's like what you're talking about. There's like this brass tacks, like how do I do these basic elements that are absolutely foundationally important, right? But that ability to just kind of navigate that, I mean, that is a really valuable asset that you guys bring at Hatchery. Okay, good. Doug or Alyssa, we'd love to hear about your kind of experience on the resources that were the most useful.
I'll let the cute sweatshirt go. Go ahead, Doug.
Wow, thank you. All right. Yeah, I did the Emory Startup Launch Accelerator. Highly recommend. It's open to any alumni, students, faculty that have a business idea. We did it with Christy Brown. It was amazing. I would look up Emory Gazetta Business School, their Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. They have
Mhm.
the Peachtree Minority Fund. Like if you're a woman-owned or minority-owned business, they'll invest in you. They have so many programs that offer, training and support. And of course, come to the hatchery just to ask questions. It's right across the street from the CDC, really close to Rollins School of Public Health. So just come in and check it out, and just talk to students that are in there about your idea. And yeah, I think that's all the advice that I have right now. Yeah.
Yeah. And well, that last part you're mentioning, just even the fact, given the hatchery has a physical space, just showing up to the hatchery and connecting with like-minded students and people that are just thinking about different ideas, I've got to imagine that's pretty contagious, right? Just to be in that kind of environment. They kind of get you, you get them, and you can kind of build off each other's idea. The other thing I wanted to mention for folks that are attending the webinar, we'll make sure to follow up with all these resources that folks are mentioning so that you have that as a follow-up to the recording or webinar today. Melissa, any thoughts on, oh, go ahead, Doug. Yeah.
I just want to offer one last piece of advice. Adrene Schwartz sends out a RSPH research opportunity digest, and it's just a bunch of like grants for research. So Adrene Schwartz at SPH. I just want to like throw that out there for the recording. It's a lot of
Absolutely.
for researchers.
Very good. Yeah, we'll make sure we add that to the list.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks, Doug. Melissa, love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I have a few tactical resources. So I don't know the audience. I think some are alum students. I think the hatchery is a tremendous resource. I also find the business school just a tremendous resource for you. The SLA Accelerator is one place to start. I would just say that also joining on LinkedIn, the Emory Entrepreneur Network is very helpful. It's a great group. It's also wonderful to expand your network. But Georgia has wonderful opportunities. I'm a little more plugged in with tech. So I would say definitely look at shared cross collaborations with Georgia Tech. They have a wonderful accelerator. And I would then, to get really nitty gritty, I think from a practical standpoint, tools like UI Izzard is a wonderful tool. So if you have a concept and want to build a really quick MVP or prototype, this is a wonderful resource. It's an AI prompted, very efficient machine learning algorithm that can help you really flesh out an MVP pretty quickly. I would also take advantage of Figma and learning these tools to conceptualize your products. It's very simple. You do not have to get for a pilot or to test with your customers an idea, anything gorgeous. Just get something workable out and take it for a test drive. And these are really great tools. You can go online. They're free. I think UI Wizard might be $30. Well worth it to just flesh out and develop a prototype if you're moving down a tech lane and don't want to invest too much in tech costs.
Yeah, man, listen, this is a great point, right? Because tech now is less of an obstacle for folks, right? Because it's so accessible. There's a lot of low code, no code options. Things are free online. So I love the premise of what you're describing because it allows you to kind of just use and test and see what works. And then you can bring, like you said, an MVP or something that is really maybe it's a wireframe, maybe it's a real basic framework, and test that out at the hatchery, or test that out with, these networks that you're mentioning. So it's it's almost you're building your own mini ecosystem to how to really start to build this out. Yeah, love it. Ben, any thoughts on the resources side? Obviously, you talked a little bit about the hatchery, but anything in particular that you might maybe recommend or highlight for folks as we think about just how to maybe start? What's the best way to start, and what are some early resources that you can recommend?
Yeah, so I would say maybe with that, like two different things. I think one thing is, and I think you heard this in all the stories here today, is like start with people, like talk to people who are entrepreneurs, who are doing something that you are interested in. I wish I could attribute this quote, but I cannot. I forget who it is, but I say it a lot, which is, if you're looking for an opportunity, you are looking for a person, because that is where opportunities exist. And so definitely, yeah, reach out to me, all of our panelists. I know would be super happy to talk with you, and you will learn so much from talking with any of them. And so I would definitely say, like, if you want to get started, go talk to people who have started, and learn from them, and get advice and feedback and encouragement from them. One resource that I like to plug, if you're sort of interested in learning about the entrepreneurship landscape, particularly in Atlanta, is the newsletter Hypopotamus. And we can find a link for that and put that in the chat. I plug it, one, because it's very good, in the sense that it's really surfacing great stories from Atlanta and the Southeast around entrepreneurship. It also surfaces events that are happening all across the Southeast. And then it also is collecting sort of like grant applications, accelerator applications, and all of those different kinds of resources as well. So it's a great kind of cross section of all of these different stories and resources that are happening. And then also the editor-in-chief, Maya Erlinger, is an Emory alumna. And so always happy to plug an Emory person as well. So it's super great. And yeah, you should help out a fellow Eagle for sure.
Well, good. And just to reiterate for folks on the webinar, we will make sure we get you the list of these resources. We're taking notes, and there's some really exciting things that we can share with you post webinar. All right, so we have about 10 minutes, and our final question really is connecting back to the original idea behind this. When I was chatting with Ben back in July in Atlanta, and it was, in public health, sometimes I don't think you equate public health and being an entrepreneur, or public health and starting a business, right? And I think there's a tremendous amount of potential to continue to elevate the potential for what new businesses can be in the public health field, in public health space, given everything we were just talking about: customer orientation, focus on people, the whole emphasis on how an MPH engages students during their time at Rollins. There's so many positives, so many strengths of having that background. And so we'd love to hear from folks how you think about the future. What does the future of being an entrepreneur look like in public health? And maybe any thoughts you have for folks that are interested or willing to sort of dive right in.
Yeah.
All right, Doug, love it.
Sure. So like I mentioned this before, but I heard a talk from Dr. Muhammad Ali. He runs the Emory Global Diabetes Research Center, and he was calling on people in the community to like come up with solutions to, help the population, help reduce the rates. And I heard someone else talk just about entrepreneurship one time, and they said, hey, none of this is really about you. It's just like about the people you serve. So I really see the future of public health and entrepreneurship from my vantage point is that, there are much more, you walk into a pool and it's just full of people like exercising, and, it looks more like a weight room. You walk into a weight room, you see so many pieces of equipment. Like I want to walk into a pool and see that. And I want more natatoriums around, and I want more people that may have a fear of the water being, reintroduced to exercise. So, and I'm just excited about innovation. So like, that's why it's so great to hear from everyone on the call, Noah and Alyssa, about what they're working on, and to be a part of the hatchery community. Like people at Emory are coming up with great ideas and at the hatchery. So it just really pumps you up about what we're doing.
Love it. Thank you, Doug. Yeah. Melissa or Noah, love to hear your thoughts about kind of the future of entrepreneurism.
I can hop in quickly. I think one thing that just gets me excited in the public health space is seeing all the awesome people at Emory, and like these are the next generation of like public health leaders and like innovative leaders, which is super exciting. I think thinking like to the field of public health and health disparities, kind of where I'm located with LGBTQ health, we've kind of moved past identifying disparities and now we're kind of like in the intervention space. And a lot of that next steps is going to be involved like how do we get these tools and interventions to people, whether that's through like mobile health interventions, increased technology bases, and all of that also is going to include community-based research. That's kind of a requirement now for a lot of like big NIH grants, is that there's some community level involvement. So I think that's kind of where I tie into is keeping community first and continuing to push that as we incorporate these new technologies to improve health and address health disparities.
Very good. Thank you, Noah. Melissa, love to hear your
Yeah,
thoughts.
I think being in the business of humanity is such an honor and such a tremendous calling. I think then to extrapolate on that and take your education to elevate humanity is even more stunning. I think everybody should experience that and go forth with that. And I think public health's intersection with big data is particularly fascinating to me. How public health, big data, and technology can serve as mechanisms to solve problems that were, originally thought to just kind of they were kind of left with a question mark, and now we can really start hypothesizing solution and developing products and systems and algorithms to alleviate suffering. So ethically applied based AI, how can machine learning predict behavior trends? How can we really educate this next level and use technology in an ethical way that betters humanity and health? And so I had a conversation with the dean of the PhD program for the nursing school who has a data
Mm,
background. And he really imparted on me just how important it is to look at this intersection and have stewards from Emory and public health graduates to navigate ethical AI, advocate for that, advocate for public health and the intersection of technology. And so, not to geek out or be overly techie in my reply, but it's really a two-pronged call to speak what was in your heart to serve humanity. Everybody needs you. Everybody needs what idea you have. There's a community in your heart and a purpose that you serve. And then to navigate the waters through emerging fields such as healthcare, AI, and machine learning, the opportunity is large. I think it's getting bigger. And I think now is the time to really consider it if you're an existing student or an alum.
very good. Well, I love a good little tech geek out, so I'm tracking with you. Good. Well, Ben, final thoughts on just kind of the future? I mean, you've got this amazing lens as the ED for the hatchery, but yeah, what does the future look like for the hatchery, and what are your thoughts about entrepreneurship for public health?
Sure. So I have no idea what the future of public health is going to look like. I have no idea what a lot of the futures of things are going to look like. But I know who's going to build them, and it's going to be Doug, Alyssa, Noah, and people like them. And so I'm very excited that at the hatchery we get to play a small part in the people who are going to be building whatever that future is going to look like. And yeah, I suspect many people feel like me of hanging out with these three. The future is going to be like really interesting, and it's going to be better because the people who are building it are awesome.
Love it. That's a great point. Yes, it's true, right? Investing in the future through students and through engagement with alumni. And I just love the fact that you guys are embarking on sort of a different level of scale. You know, I get so many interesting conversations from even the board and just from alumni that we connect with that are talking about how to think about this in a different way. And I don't know if they know that they can tap into the resources of the hatchery. So that's part of this as well, is really building that level of awareness and reinforcing some of the messages that you guys send out. So really excited about this conversation. I want to quickly check in for folks that are on the webinar. If you had any questions, we have a few minutes. Maybe we can take 1 or 2 questions for the group. Well, this was an amazing discussion. We're going to do is make sure we follow up on with everyone that attended, and we had quite a few folks that registered. We'll make sure we get this out to folks. We'll get the recording, we'll get the resources out. And just listening to you all today, I feel like there's a follow-up session. There's something here. I don't know exactly what it is, but we've talked about maybe going deeper into some of kind of use cases or ideas for how to elevate different students and maybe alumni and their experiences and that connection to the hatchery, but also much more broadly. When we talked about some topics that are much broader than sort of a yes and to the hatchery, and how do we continue to sort of elevate that awareness about public health and their, people that are public health professionals, how they can really think about launching new businesses or launching passion projects, and what are the mechanisms, what are the solutions, what are the tools, who are the people to connect with, what are the networks, what are the coalitions that you can really be part of to really build out that community for yourself. And then one final plug, we have our final session for this, our Public Health Future Starts Now series on November 22nd. And the topic is actually going to be around human-centered design. And what does human-centered design mean? What does that look like for someone with an MPH? We have an amazing group of 4 Rollins alum that are going to be speaking about their background and work experience, specifically in tech, but folks that are a little bit outside of tech as well, but really coincides with this whole discussion. So we'd love to pick this up. Hope you all can attend, and we'll get the registration pages for that out for you as well. So thank you all. Thank you, Noah, Doug, Alyssa, Ben, and really appreciate everyone's time today.